Hello, this is Mark Sabatella from Outside Shore Music. In this video, I want to talk about the word transcription as it applies to music. There's really, at least three kind of distinctly different meanings of the word. And as we talk about orchestration in upcoming videos, I'll be talking about one of those meanings, the one that I'll talk about last. But first I want to talk about two other meanings of transcription that you might be familiar with or you might occasionally hear about, and I don't want you to get them confused. So the first form is one that we hear a lot about within the world of MuseScore, and that is the idea of taking a piece of printed music or published music, in this case it's a PDF that was scanned from printed music. So we have it to look at, it's a Mozart string quartet, and then someone has taken this music and entered it into MuseScore, one note at a time, just entering it all in, and all the dynamics, all the articulations, and so forth. So that now we have something that we can not only look at, but we can also press the play button and listen to the playback. And also we could load it back into MuseScore and edit it, and so forth. So having that piece of music in MuseScore is really valuable. So that process of just taking the printed music and entering it unchanged into MuseScore or any other similar program is one sense of the word transcription. Now, another sense of the word transcription is one that I'm familiar with from my experience as a jazz musician, and this is the idea of learning either an actual composition or more often we hear it used in terms of learning an improvised solo, listening to a recording to learn a piece of music. So what I have here is a transcription I did. It was on a recording by trumpet player Red Rodney, but it's a recording of the saxophone solo played by Dick Oates on the piece Blues for Alice. And so he improvised that, it was recorded, and so there's no written music for it, but I wanted to be able to study this solo to see what makes it click. And in order to do that, I needed to learn the piece by ear, and in the process I wrote it out. So now I have what is called a transcription of the solo. It's a written out version of the recording that I learned by ear, and so forth. So that is the second sense of the word transcription. The third sense, and the one that's going to be most relevant as we talk about orchestration, is the idea of taking a piece of music that was originally written for one instrument or one group of instruments and rewriting it for different instruments. So I'm going to give you one of the most famous examples here so you can see what I'm talking about. This piece here, Modest Mussorgsky, I can't pronounce things, Pictures at an Exhibition, right? And this was originally written as a piano piece. This is the opening movement. And so forth, right? So that is the piece as originally written, but if you've heard this piece before, and most of us probably have, it probably wasn't from this original piano version unless you were a MuseScore user back when it first came out, MuseScore 1 back in 2011, because it was the actual demo piece for MuseScore back in the old days. So this was a piece you might have seen in MuseScore. But more likely, outside of that experience, you've probably heard the orchestration done by Ravel. And Ravel's version isn't for piano at all, it's for a full orchestra. So instead of that line being for piano, it's for trumpet. It's a solo trumpet at the beginning, and then eventually, after those first two measures, those big chords is the whole brass section, horns, trumpets, and trombones. And later on brings in the strings, etc. So this idea of taking a piece originally for piano and then rewriting it for orchestra is called transcription. We also get it the other way around, taking a piece that was written for orchestra and rewriting it for piano. So that is a thing, and since someone else has then taken that piece and transcribed that into MuseScore, we can now hear MuseScore play that piece using its playback. Etc. So that sense of transcription, taking music originally written for one instrument or one set of instruments and rewriting it for another set, that is the sense of the word transcription, that when you hear people talking about orchestration using that word, this is what they mean, rewriting something. I do want to conclude with one little distinction that's not a black and white distinction, but the distinction between transcribing for different instruments and arranging. If someone said, like, I could totally say that this was arranged by Ravel. I would not be inaccurate in saying that. I could also say it was orchestrated by Ravel, transcribed. They would all mean the same thing. But you might also have someone doing an arrangement of the piece that changes it more significantly, not just assigning the same notes to different instruments, but also adding measures, changing around the order of things. Hey, I think it would be fun to do this section after this section, or what if we added a little improvised solo over here, or put on a drum beat to it, or whatever else, right? Those sorts of things fall under the category of arrangement. When we talk about transcription in this sense, we're usually talking about a more literal, faithful recreation of the original piece, where at most we're doubling notes in octaves and things like that, but we're not adding or removing anything more significant than that. So those are three different senses of the word transcription, and a little more about the process of transcription, or the definition of it as it applies to orchestration.